Hello, everyone. I'm Nico, and welcome back to this week's Eternal Turn podcast, making sense of Eternal Turn. It is episode 4, so we've been doing this for this would be a month now at this point. And the last 2 weeks, we've had Shuvi Senpai here as Bramflakes was on vacation, but my co-host is back from vacation. So yeah, welcome back.
Yeah, I'm happy to be back. I started the podcast and I was saying like, oh, I have to dip almost immediately. So big thanks to Shuvi for filling in for me while I was gone. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, once again, I also appreciate Shuvi for filling in too. It was great to have him as a co-host in your absence. But now we are going to look into this week's statistics. So let's switch it off to our pick rate as we normally do. So you can see for our pick rate, we have Shoichi with a 3.8% pick rate, followed by Two-Handed Sword Yuki with a 3.7% pick rate, then Tonfa Yan with 3.6%, Luke with 3.4%, and Aiden with 3.3%. So you Shoichi's been up here for quite some time. I feel like if you watched any of our previous episodes, you would know that he's just a very popular character in Korea due to I'd say his more like flashiness at and how good he is with like low ping. Well, good quote unquote. He's been nerfed so much since season 1 that he's definitely not I say top tier, but a lot of people like playing him in Korea, so his pick rate just kind of stays up there.
Yeah, it is interesting seeing how many of these top tier characters are characters that only seem to be, or high average pick rather. They usually only show up a lot when the characters themselves are pretty good. Oh, excuse me. Got sneeze. Whew. Sorry about that.
Okay, this is
Yeah, it's like you said, Shuichi's really flashy, Yuki, Yan, Luke, and Aiden. I feel like all five of these characters end up being like pretty flashy when you play them and feel really good to play. But you know that they're not particularly like super strong unless they're showing up in these average pick rates.
well, yeah. Other than okay, I'd say Yuki and Shoichi are always like up here, but we have Tonfa, which if you guys watched last week's episode, you know how much or how dominant Tonfa was. He's fallen off since the nerfs they gave him in the hot fix or like mini patch last week. I think the main thing about the mini patch that nerfed him was how much healing he gets from his. I think it's is it his passive or enhanced E or like enhanced spell from his E. But anyways, it went from like 200% healing to 100% healing. So I think that's the main thing. They did also nerf, I believe it was his E as well. It was either his E or Q. But yeah, so that's why he's fallen off a little bit. Luke's also generally a pretty popular character, and I think Aiden's also just quite popular in AR as well. Just I think Aiden's a bit better though than he used to be, since like last season, like I guess near the end of it, he kind of wasn't doing nearly as well, and his pick rate fell. But I think now he's in a better spot, so his pick rate went back up again.
Yeah, Tombayan is definitely one of those newer picks because I remember a lot of Yon players were saying Tombayan wasn't good. So it is surprising knowing that he kind of took over Korea as much as he did in the last few weeks and had to be tuned down because of it. And we'll see if Tombayan's still in a good place afterwards. It looks like he is still doing pretty well, but definitely a far cry from the tear that he was, as far as I know.
Yeah, you did miss the terror of Tom Yon last week. He was like top 5 for like all the good stats, and he was the best pick rate at like almost 5%. So he was definitely a terror. But yeah, we'll move on now to our lowest. Oh, next up, oh yeah, we'll follow to our highest win rate now. So this is the actual win rate. So our I just put average win rate. I don't know. It is technically average, but anyways. So our highest actual win rate is Martina with 23.8%, followed by Crossbow Nadine with 20.3%, AR Aya or Assault Rifle Aya with 19.1%. I forgot to change the icon by Sniper Aya. It shows Throw, but it's Sniper Aya with 16.5% and Throw Sisela with 15 point. Again, I guess I forgot to put, but that was afterwards. I would have to check, but I think it's like 15.2, 15.4, something like that. So, yeah, Martina's really only up here because there's actually only two people playing her in top 1000. So they are, I guess, having somewhat of a success with her. That's why she's up here. I definitely don't think of her as like a really strong character, though. What are your thoughts on current Martina?
I don't remember her being changed that much in the last patch, and if I'm being honest, playing Martina kind of took a lot out of me when she first released, just because her playstyle is so far departed from, traditional Eternal Return characters where you would be allowed to farm or you'd be allowed to interact with other characters. But with Martina, you have to, play your mini game of clicking your camera on people for I think at least 6 minutes is the best time I've seen so far, and it it is very rewarding, to be fair, to actually hit the objective, which is the reason why I'm assuming she's at 24% win rate. But it's just not gameplay that I personally enjoy because I think her kit's very fun to play, but the fact that you can't play it for a very long time definitely puts me off. But I'm glad people are finding success on her.
Yeah, that's completely fair. Yeah, last patch they didn't do anything in her in the hotfix. In the major patch, all they did was buff her vision range. That's all I remember from it. So nothing too major. But I don't know. I find it interesting that they managed to get a this high win rate. But again, I think it's just because there's one to two people playing her. So next up, we have Crossbow Nadine. Just they haven't really done too much to change Crossbow Nadine. I think they nerfed her stacks slightly again, but other than that, it's been kind of the same thing. It's crossbow for this still, so it's just I believe last week it went to bow instead, but everyone's on crossbow now. Bow's kind of obsolete. So it's just the same thing. Late game scaling and just her our stats being with like armor pen being really strong right now as well. So
Yeah,
eh,
I can definitely see that. Nadine's just one of those characters that always does well.
yeah, exactly. Next we have actually Air Aya. So Air Aya was not doing well at all last week. If you remember, this is the reason why she's up here now is because they actually gave her a buff. They buffed her. I think it was basic attack scaling in the hotfix slash minor patch, and they also buffed a few of the ARs. Not like any of the major ones. I think just some of the like the minor ones such as XCR, which I don't think really anyone uses. So, but yeah, I guess the buffs to her basic attack scaling have helped her do better now than before.
Yeah, definitely an odd buff because we already have a lot of people that don't particularly enjoy the other AR character, but it's such a minor buff, so I'm surprised that it made her success go up as much as it did.
Yeah, like she was like bottom five for a few number of stats last week. So seeing her up here is a bit of a shock, to be honest. I guess people were, I don't know. The only thing I can think of is people were just coping on how bad she was, and they're like, "Oh, we got a buff. We're gonna play her now," right?
Yeah, that is probably what happened.
Yeah, and then Sniper Aya, I honestly don't remember anything changed with Sniper Aya, so it's a bit interesting that she's up here considering she was no, I think doing average last time. I mean, the both Ayas, by the way, don't have an extremely high pick rate. I think it's like 0.4, 0.5%. Like it's not high at all, so there's only a few people playing these characters, but I guess it's just the red sprite poking and with Sniper Aya that's made her successful this week.
Yeah, I can see it.
And then Throw Sisela, this is again just like one person. Generally with Throw you play as her like an auto attacker compared to Shuriken where you play her as Amp. and I like playing Thursa. That's like I guess my secret character pick, really not so secret anymore, I guess. And she does a lot of damage, but you do get highly punished for missing an E. If you miss one of your E's, you're pretty much dead. So, but if you're able to get your kills and get your transition items, you can do quite well.
Yeah, I think Cecile also got a lot of decent quality of life buffs. When the past when she was much stronger, she would also have a decent win rate. So it is nice seeing that kind of reappear.
For sure. And now let's look at our normalized one. So the normalized is they have at least a 1% pick rate because, again, if it's only a few players playing the characters, you can often skew the stats to be either really good or really bad depending on how good that player is. So let's look at our at least 1% pick rate under like the win rate. So we have Crossbow Nadine once again up here with 20.3% win rate, followed by Carla with 13.4, and Shurikenhagen with 13.2%, Alex with 12.9%, and Jenny with 12.6%. Now, we already talked about Nadine. Carla. Carla is actually quite interesting. She got a pretty decent buff, and like they reworked her as well. They removed I was told by Shuvi, it was the basic attack scaling to get amp scaling, and it helped her quite a bit, and now she's doing quite well now.
Yeah, it's definitely pretty cool. I did notice that they reworked her scaling a little bit, so it's nice that they're pushing her towards more of a mage than an auto attacker. It does seem like Nimble Neuron's trying to push very specific play styles for a character and their explicit weapon. So just defining Carlos' niche and following that philosophy is pretty good on their part.
Yeah, it's just I was watching his one circle, like he was the number one player. He's actually number two right now. He fell off slightly to someone else. He was playing Carla in the was it ERI? That was just on last. Oh, ERM, sorry, the Masters last week, and he's just so good on Carla.
Yeah, Carl definitely favors the mechanically skilled players.
Yeah, I tried playing Carla and what Cobalt last night. It was not the best experience, to be honest.
Yeah, I can see that.
And then we have Shurikenhagen up here. Now, Shurikenhagen was popping off more at the beginning of the season. She kind of wasn't really talked much about like the last like few weeks, but she's come back up again, having a pretty high win rate. Again, a lot of the things that are common right now is that amp transition items are quite strong, and just the buffs they gave to Shurikenhagen during preseason, and I even think the first patch into the actual season have helped her quite a bit. So, not a surprising pick or like character to be up here, in my opinion.
Yeah, I do remember a few Hedgeners coming through, but they're mostly targeted towards her items and not herself. And the hotfix did seem like it gave her better cooldowns. So, um, yeah, Hedgen's a character that's I don't think ever has been bad for more than like a week. So I'm not surprised that she's doing well again.
Yeah, I will note though that they nerfed her ultimate. Okay, they reworked how her ultimate works. So the cooldown of her ultimate now starts as soon as she casts it, which is huge. And what they did for the compensation nerf, which I would say I think the buff was better than the nerf, was that they added 10 seconds longer cooldown at level 3. That was, and I think 5 seconds at level 2. So I think overall that will be a huge buff to Hedgen.
Yeah, I agree. Especially since if she hits all of her omens, you probably lost. And if she misses her omens, then she'd gain a lot more cooldown overall from the cooldown starting at the beginning instead of the end.
Yeah, and then we have Alex here, and Alex is just, from what I've seen, he mainly is playing as like an auto attacker right now with two-handed sword, and he's just able to. He's always been like a late game character. I since like because of how his kit works, needing multiple weapons, right? So He's just been able to do quite well, even after the nerfs he got towards pistol and two-handed sword.
Yeah, interesting one. I I was thinking, and Alex is one of those characters that just seems to scale no matter how bad he is. And I think usually when he's bad, his win rate's not that great, but it seems like they've gotten him into a decent spot where he can actually excel late game.
Yeah, and then last we actually have Jenny up here. Now, I was told that people are playing Amp Jenny now. I tried an Amp Jenny in Cobalt and it did not go well. I don't know if you know what the preferred playstyle Jenny is right now. That is probably something I should have looked up before this episode. But yeah, Jenny has come back into meta again. I remember what was it? Wasn't it like the last ERM where Jenny was like dominated and then they like hotfix nerfed her and then she was basically deleted from the game.
Yeah, when she was like performing a little bit too well, and they like gutted her, and the other characters that were strong weren't touched.
Yeah, like Kathy, I remember that was then. But yeah, so and again, if she's playing more of an amp style, it's just again late game amp transition items are quite well. They added Persona, which I think is like really good right now for an amp item, which like, it's a new like 4 square headpiece for this season, and just like how much amp late game items give. So generally, it's at least 80, uh, somewhere between 80 to 90, I think. No, I was like, is there one that's either above that? I'm like, I don't think so. I think they've nerfed any of the amp items above that, like other than weapons, of course. There are weapons that are above that, but like armor pieces, I don't think there's any above 90 at this point. So
Yeah,
it's
it makes sense. They finally managed to tune it down.
a little bit, not too much. I know Cabana got nerfed by like 5. It was like 90 and then now it's 85. But yeah, and let's look at next. We'll look at the high our average kills. So average kills, these are the high actual. So we have Barbara with a 1.63 average kills, followed by Sniper Aya with 1.55, Throw Cicella with 1.55, Celine with 1.52, and Carla with 1.49. Now, all of these characters we actually mentioned earlier, but Barbara, I actually tried Barbara last night in Cobalt, which again, I know it's Cobalt, so it's a bit different, but she did feel quite insane with her ultimate, especially in the late game, which is what Barbara generally is known for anyway. I know how they've changed how, again, amp works, but I feel like Barbara's late game is still really good.
Yeah, Barbara is one of those characters where I feel like she's always going to be good. I know there's like a lot of propaganda that floats around here and there about her being unplayable without certain aspects, but she seems like she's always like had the ultimate combo with her laser beams, mowing people down. So they've never really. I mean, obviously she was very bad in the beginning of the season, but I think she's been tuned up enough that she's probably a little, at least for the mid game, pretty good. Obviously, she did show up in the high average win rate, but this is a pretty large disparity in average kills, and it might be one or two players, but still pretty impressive.
Yeah, and actually, when I was looking at Barber though, I will admit the top 2 Barber players have not been doing well as of lately. So I don't know if it was other Barber players or if these are she did well like a few days ago or what. But yeah,
Yeah, and maybe in a few days she'll fall off this stat.
yeah, exactly. So and we already talked about everyone else on here. Unless you have something to add about the character here with average. Actually, do we talk about Celine at all? Am I misremembering?
We haven't talked about Celine yet, actually, but I think Celine's a character that doesn't need. I think she's been nerfed enough that she's starting to be a little lower on these lists, but just the nature of the character, I think it makes it so that she's always somewhere here.
Yeah, still, yeah, I was just summarize. Lean, very mechanically hard character to play, but she, once again, she is an amp character. a few of the transition items they have added for amp characters have actually been beneficial to her, specifically like Racing Helmet, which is an attack speed and amp item, and I believe maybe Tellurian Timepiece. That one I think is more niche. I think they generally stick to Scotty, but that one has amp and attack speed as well. Like they reworked Tellurian Timepiece, but Racing Helm was a new piece added.
Yeah.
And sorry, I'm just gonna add new game. Then after we have our normalized average kills, so yeah, bye bye Barbara. there's not many people playing Barbara. These are once again, these characters have at least a 1% pick rate. So we have Celine here with 1.52 average kills, followed by Carla with 1.49, then Felix with 1.48, and Tia 1.40, and Nathapon with 1.38. Now we just talked about Celine, we've talked about Carla already, and we have Felix here. Now Felix has we talked about Felix previously, and the main thing with Felix is he got a lot of buffs, like mini buffs throughout all of season 6, and it's just kind of added up to the point to where he is now, especially with the HP and defense nerfs overall. He's able to do so much damage with his auto attacks. They did nerf him in the last major patch to his how much damage his second auto attack does, the same with like Lee Lin as well. So I think that took a bit of an impact. You can see that the average kills overall has gone down since I think even like last week or 2 weeks ago, where it was closer to like 1.7, 1.8 for the top characters. And you can see that we're at 1.5 for the top character, 1.4 really. So the characters have been toned down a bit. They're not killing as many people as before, but he's still be able to do quite well compared to the rest of the cast.
Yeah, it's definitely, as you said, a dramatic fall from the first time we had this, where everyone was like above 1.6 at minimum. So they definitely dropped time to kill by a good amount, as we've all asked for.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know if it's enough. I think a lot of people are still complaining. I still think it's too low, especially in late game. I feel like in late game there's a lot less outplay potential, but then that could be due to amp items being strong or just other factors. Like I guess other factors being like character scaling strong too. Yeah, next character here is we haven't actually seen it all this season, and that is Tia. So Tia's actually been getting slow buffs over the last month, and I guess it's come to a point where her average kills are quite good right now. She even got buffed in the hotfix as well. Just like with Tia, it's mainly just you generally like poke people, and I guess now she's at a point where her damage is quite good and a lot less room to outplay her as before or get away from her really. So did you have something to add with Tia?
Not really. I think, yeah, like you said, a lot of slow buffs have been coming through as of late, so it's not. I feel like it's just an inevitability that Tia becomes strong again because she does have a lot of decent matchups into the meta characters, which we've seen for mostly melees, and Tia is notorious for being pretty good into melee characters.
Here, I actually will note, I'm just looking at the hotfix. This is actually a pretty big change, is they changed her passive from being the cooldown reduction converting to attack power to now converting to skill amp, which is a lot more significant for her since she's a skill amp character. So that could be one of the things that has impacted how good she is right now.
Yeah, definitely.
And then Nathapon, I think we've talked about Nathapon a few times on for her average kills. He does so much damage. Generally, if you get hit with his E once, you're just dead. Like there, unless you have some way that you get out of a Z, or this is solos, but in team modes, if you have like totem, so you could like stasis yourself, you aren't really getting away from his one-shot combo.
Yeah, it's the man's known for bursting, and he's been in lots of bursts, so no surprise there.
And yeah, so that's all right for our average kills. And last we have average rank. So yeah, average rank. So we have our actual average rank. So we have Dagger Jackie with a 6.1 average rank, followed by 11 with 6.2. Two-handed sword viewer with 6.2, Bo Hedgen with 6.3, and Bo Nadine with 6.8. Now, I'll just kind of summarize overall with these characters. These characters generally have really good mobility to get away from other people, with the exception, I'd say, Nadine. She has a little bit of ways to get from people between her monkey wire and the squirrel traps, but with Nadine, it's mainly the fact that she's not going into situations like fighting objectives, so she's not putting herself at risk to die early compared to a lot of the cast. And just like, yeah, the other characters are just very slippery.
Yeah, I have nothing really to add to that. 11 still has like by far the highest movement speed in the game, I believe, unless they've nerfed that. I didn't notice, so I'm surprised that she's actually not higher than Jackie is. But I think Dagger Jackie literally never tries to fight when she's being played, and 11 does try occasionally to do some rather
Yeah,
dangerous movement.
yeah, that's completely fair. Most people play Dagger Jackie as like a tank rat and just go for her placement points. So, and then we have our normalized stats. So these are characters with at least a 1% pick rate. We have Lennox, uh, the highest at 7, fall like tied with Shurikenhagen with a 7 average rank. Then Daniel 7.1, Estelle with 7.2, and Crossbow Nadine with 7.2. Now Lennox just has a kit where she can just kite people for days. And she's generally quite on the bulkier end compared to a lot of the cast, and so a lot of people just don't bother fighting her as well. So I'd say those are your two main reasons why she's up here.
Yeah, I can definitely agree with that.
And then I could honestly say the same thing with like Estelle. Well, with Estelle, she has a really long dash, but also she's quite tanky. So I'd say our two tankier characters being up here makes sense, and people just don't want to deal with them. And then we have Hedgen and Shurikenhagen and Daniel here. Already, again, these are characters who are also quite slippery, have decent mobility, or like Daniel has decent mobility, but Daniel also has dagger skill. Edgin has a wall jump that can go quite far. So. And then just Nadine. Nadine's up here again, similar to Bo Nadine, but Bo Nadine puts herself a little bit more at risk compared to Crossbow puts herself more at risk compared to Bo. But Crossbow also has crossbow skill in case she needs to get away.
Yeah, and I'm sure that Crossbow also has the option to just murder people more often earlier on than Bo Nadine does.
Yeah, exactly. And yes, now let's move on to our weaker characters. So these are average pick rates. So these are characters average pick rate for at least like I don't look at people who have like multiple weapons just because one person may be playing not playing one weapon just because it's bad and the other one's like better, right? So these are the actually like worst characters, I guess, or lowest pick rate characters. So we have Johan with 0% pick rate, then Martina with 0.1%, followed by Priya with 0.2%, then Arcana Emma at 0.3%. I will note here that Shuriken Emma's actually was at like a 0% pick rate, so then we have Chloe with a 0.4% pick rate. So Johan, I'm just gonna skip. No one's picking him because he's not a solo's character. Martina also not being picked just because of honestly like how boring I'd say how boring her playstyle is and how much you have to like scale in order to actually do something and like put yourself at risk, and people just don't want to play that way. We already talked about Martina before, and that was pretty much what we summarize. Freya, similar with Johan, is just mainly a team modes character, and she got nerfed quite heavily. If Cup, I think it was last major patch. No, it was the first major patch of the season because of how good she was during preseason. So yeah, that's why she's not up here. For Arcana Emma not being here or being down here is actually surprising because of how strong. Oh, but because of because they added Arcana this patch, right? And I think the stats we had last week had Arcana Emma as doing really well, and I guess just Emma is not a popular character. Have you seen Arcana Emma at all?
Not yet, but I can imagine just being like a slight meta difference makes her feel just a little bit worse to play.
Yeah, there was the thing is again, just like with last week, she was doing quite well. So I guess it was mainly just the hype of the new character, I guess, or people figured out how to counter Arcana Emma more. So and again, Shuriken is even worse, which is what I included. Oh, I included the best one, right?
Yeah.
Shuriken's even worse than this too. It's just no one's playing Emma right now. I guess not too fun to play. No, I wouldn't say Emma's that weak though. Just the people I've seen who are playing her didn't do like just do what Emma does normally. And we have Chloe, and Chloe's been actually quite weak all this this season pretty much. I'm talking with Shubi last week. I really thought when they added Sudarsana with Vigor on it, Chloe would be doing really well, but that has not been the case.
Yeah, I feel like Chloe's one of those characters where she's either the better version of an auto attacker or the worst version. So the fact she's probably not being played just means that there's other auto attackers that exist that are potentially outperforming her.
Yeah, exactly. I think probably someone like Felix, who mentioned earlier that we have that has like high average kills, or you can even say Rio. Rio's doing quite as well. Not top 5, but top 10 for a lot of the stats. And just like I guess Nadine would be your main point. Crossbow Nadine's quite strong, as mentioned earlier. So in the low actual, here we are. So as mentioned, we have Shuriken Emma down here with 0% pick rate, followed by Dagger Shikai with 0%. Johan also 0%. Throw Sahir with 0.1%, and Throw Sissel with 0.1%. Now Dagger Shikai, he, as mentioned last week, he was actually quite strong for, well, I will say above average, maybe not top tier, for like 2 weeks, and then they buffed Spear by quite a bit. It went from 1.6% amp scaling up to 3% amp scaling. It may have been actually 1.8 instead of 1.6, but regardless, over 1% more amp per level, which is insane. And so all the dagger, also in combination, they nerfed Eclipse as well, which people were playing it because I guess Eclipse was quite good. So yeah, at a yeah, everyone's just playing Spear right now. That's why no one's playing Dagger.
Yeah, it sure has a character that they just picked. He's one of the characters that's always weird whenever nibbling on buffs the weaker version because one version's already good. So if you make the other version even better, it's just like this perpetual cycle of one thing gets stronger and the other thing is just fine, but it's just not played because it's outclassed.
Yeah, for sure. And Throsa here again, it's just because of Shuriken being the better version. And same with Throsa as well. Um, but with Throsa they generally play again auto attack, while with Shuriken you play amp. But again, with amp transition items being so good, and I just say Red Sprite being really good as well, it's just made amp the better version. Really amp Shuriken.
Yeah.
Then after this, we have the lowest win rate. So hover over that. So for these are the actual low win rates. We have Hammer Magnus with a 2.5% average win rate, followed by Heart with 3.2%, Dagger Jackie with 3.3%, Adriana with 3.9%, and Piolo with 4.1%. Now, Hammer Magnus being this low is quite surprising to me, to be honest, but I think it's just because there's a lot of Hammer Magnus players. Like, I checked, like, the pick rate is quite high, and I mean, generally with Magnus anyway, people are playing him to, like, Rat, and I guess more so with Bat than Hammer, but even with Hammer, just Magnus's kits just generally played for him to Rat.
Yeah. He's one of those characters where if his win rate is high, then there's a problem.
Yeah. And then Heart's just been doing really bad this for yeah, this season. I don't know. Do you remember? I mean, they've been nerfing Heart like they did nerf Heart. What was it? The hotfix during not this hotfix, but last hotfix they did like 2 weeks ago, and that Heart. Yeah, I guess the nerf just kind of got up to her, and she's just not been doing well. I think part of it also might be because the players that normally play Heart kind of dropped her.
Yeah. She's a character that, again, it's always funny knowing that Heart's a character who just ends up being dropped if the moment she isn't. Oh,
Sorry, I had to just fix you. It glitched out.
yeah. Heart's a character that when she isn't super strong, the top pilots always drop her immediately. So you can tell that she isn't considered extremely top tier because, again, her pick rate doesn't show up, her win rate's doing fairly poorly, and yeah, she just looks very bad when she is probably just average.
And Dagger Jackie, similar with Magnus, is just a rat character. Adriana is actually has like a pretty good and pick rate right now. But with me, I've always said with Adriana is she's just a character that goes for kills, but generally just dies to someone else in like top three. It's
Yeah.
we will. I think we did see her. I don't know if we did see her in the average kills. I believe so, but if not, she's general definitely like up there. But yeah, she just doesn't win. I think part of that though for her not winning is just especially in like final zone, like the way Adriana wants to play is to like for people to chase her around, but when you're in final zone, you don't have the room to do that, right? So it just allows melee characters to get on top of her when in other situations they wouldn't be able to.
Yep, I agree with that.
And then Piolo, Piolo actually has been doing like being picked quite a bit as of lately, and I can't really place why. I don't remember, or yeah, I don't remember anything about Piolo being changed significantly. I'd have to relook at the patch notes, but yeah, with Piolo, he's just I don't know, he's just not a character to like beat a lot of the top tiers in my opinion. Just uh, he was definitely weaker at the beginning of the season, and I still would honestly say it's kind of the same thing. I just more people are picking him, so I will admit that he's slightly stronger than before, but I definitely don't think he's the best character out there.
Yeah, I know he was like very not great at all because Chaos would constantly complain, but he seems to be playable and he's pretty fun, apparently. So he's gonna be played.
But yeah, now with normalized win rate, so we still have again Hammer Magnus here 2.5%, then Adriano with 3.9%, Yolo with 4.1%, Elena with 4.2%. Again, this is win rate with at least a 1% pick rate. And Tonfa Hyunwoo with a 4.5% win rate. Now, again, I think Elena is the same with Magnus. A lot of people just kind of play her to place highly, but they just don't win. That's about it with Elena. She just doesn't beat generally the person who's really fed, because most of the time she's not the one fed. She's just kind of going for second.
Yep. Just like two rat characters sitting right
I mean,
outside of the normalized win rate.
yeah, it's the same with Tonfa Hyunwoo, to be honest. Kind of the same thing. More of like a rat type character, but only kind of does well to when he can ambush someone to, just like one shot them because it's Tonfa, right? But Tonfa's been nerfed actually overall. They actually did just buff his amp scaling on his ultimate, this hotfix, but um it was like quite minor, so I don't think it's really done much at all. And his win rate will say otherwise, but he does have quite a high pick rate. I think it's close to 3%. Might be a little bit lower than that, but yeah, definitely not the top character there.
Mhm.
And then we just finished a win rate. Then we have average kills. So we have our low average kills, which we have Chloe here with 0.52 average kills, followed by Dagger Jackie 0.62, Heart with 0.74, Bonidine 0.75, and Arcana Emma with 0.82. Now, I'll just say about the first three, well, I mean, we kind of talked about a lot, but I would just say Chloe and Heart are really bad right now, so that's why they're just down here. We already talked about them earlier. Bonidine just here because, again, she generally wins but doesn't kill people. And with Arcana Emma, it's the same thing with Nadine, honestly. The way Emma and Nadine play are kind of, they play differently, but their end result's the same. They aren't kills characters, they are wins characters, and that's why their average kills is on the lower end.
Yeah, it's always funny seeing characters like that where you know that they'll win the game or they're very favored to, but their kills are just very poor because either people run from them or they run from other people, and then they'll die like to a random ambush for like half the games, and then they win the other half.
Yeah, I think with Emma, yeah, she can't. The thing with Emma is she can't really chase people unless she commits the tools that she needs to kill them, right? And so Emma won't. You obviously, like, good Emma players won't use the tools to chase people. So in the end circle, when, as I said with Adriana, where you're forced to fight them, unlike Adriana, Emma can win a lot of the time. So I think she's stronger in those forced close situations compared to, again, someone like Adriana.
Yeah.
And then our low normalized average kills, we have Estelle with 0.77, two-handed sword Jackie 0.83, Elena with 0.92, Tafa Hyunwoo 0.93, and Aiden with 0.99. Now, Estelle being down here was a little bit surprising to me, but I guess it's just the way that she like builds, I guess, in the way she plays, where she's just generally a bit more like bulkier, built more like bulkier items, and like she has like her ultimate if she wants to like kill people, or like if she's low health, then she has her ultimate, and generally runs healing drone, so she has like basically a second health state. But I guess at that point, people just run away from her, or she can't chase them because she's used her E to get in close proximity to the person.
Yeah, and to add to that, they did nerf her damage by a very significant margin with the Juggernaut changes, so I'm not surprised that her kill confirms are much weaker than they were in the past.
Yeah, they did nerf Vigor, right? That was one of the big changes. Or Yeah. And so yeah, that'll definitely impact her. Now, two-handed sword Jackie, I think part of yeah, like there is a decent number of people playing two-handed sword Jackie, but I'd say compared to characters like dual swords or axe, where you have more damage, at least in like the early to mid. Even I mean, axe is generally better in the late game anyway, but I'd say even more in the early mid game, axe and dual swords are better, and so you're really only doing well with two-handed sword if you make it to that late game where you're able to get. I believe they use Dane Sleeve. It might actually be Aurora Longsword at this point, but I think with two-handed, it's more like a scaling, like get 5+ kills or get no kills type of situation.
Yeah, this seems to be the pretty consistent story for a lot of these characters, just because Elena's also a character that needs to scale from getting items. Kyungwoo probably just sits in bushes, honestly. Who knows what that guy does half the time. And I know a lot of anime say that he always needs to scale, so it's just a lot of like it seems like average kills being low for characters that are played are almost always on scaling characters that legitimately have scaling requirements.
Yeah, yeah, I would definitely agree with that sentiment. And then last, we have average rank. Sorry. So our average rank or low actual average rank is Dagger Jackie with 6.1, 11. Oh, sorry, that was our better stats. Well, there we go. More makes this much more sense. So we have Sahir with the average rank of 12. There's those Sahir. Then we have Piolo of 9.7, Laura with 9.6, Kiara with 9.5, and Mai with 9.5. Now, with Ursa here, it's just, again, not many people are playing him, and generally with Ursa here in general, it's hard to get away from people, so if you're quite low, you're just kind of screwed, to be honest.
Yep.
So, it makes sense, the low average rank. Then Piolo, you know, from what I've seen of the Piolo players, like you can see this guy, they're generally quite aggressive, and even though I think his escape, honestly, is not that bad, I guess it's a bit easier for him to chase than it is to get away. But I think it's more on how aggressive the Piolo players are.
Yeah, definitely. Peel is a very all-in character. He goes in and then he kind of just hopes that you back off or he kills you.
Yeah, exactly. Laura, I think Laura is more of an early game character who generally wants to like fight or like wants to get early game objectives, and if she doesn't, she just I mean it's again anytime you fight objective, it is a risk, and so fighting for these early objectives more often than other characters will lower your average rank. And then we have Kiara. Same situation really is just with well with Kiara actually I would say more that she generally is like she's good. Actually no, is quite good at getting away from people, but I think for her it's a lot of like committing to fights. I know people are playing her amp more compared to before, so I could definitely see her fighting for more of those early game objectives as well. It is my same thing. Mine generally would go for Sentry to get Phantom Jacket online, and I'd say she generally does struggle when she doesn't have Phantom Jacket.
For sure. Actually, I'm kind of surprised that Kiara's a bit lower because of her old builds, but if she is playing amp, like you say, she's definitely much more fragile than she was in the past, so it does make sense. And same thing with Mai. She is supposed to be tanky, but she definitely lives or dies with the Phantom Jacket, so not too surprising.
Yeah, and then our normalized version. A lot of these characters will appear here, as you will see. We have Yolo, the 9.7 average rank, followed by Laura with 9.6, Kiara with 9.5, Rio with 9.3, and Nikki with 9.3. I'd say same thing. Nikki's definitely fights for like cemetery tree generally, like that's her main route. But I have seen some temple Nikki routes as well, like over temple tree, which was changed not too long ago. It was like during the preseason, and so she's definitely another character that kind of lives or dies by first tree. So definitely average rank being low makes sense. Rio is just a really squishy character and really needs to scale in order to do well. So she's at high risk of dying during the first night.
Yep, it makes sense too because the character is just so obnoxious to play against later on that she has to be fragile, especially early.
Yeah, I hate fighting late game Rio. I hate Rio.
Yeah.
And now, actually, yeah, now that we've covered all the stats that you guys, or that I have for you guys, we'll just kind of going off on our own here on talking about some of the strongest items. Now, last week I did show you guys what were the most picked items as well as the highest win rate items. Since Brand Flake's not here, I'll just give a brief, like a summary of that. If you didn't, I'm assuming you didn't see that, but the most used or the highest win rate item was Elysian Halo, and I think that doesn't surprise you. At least it doesn't surprise me at all.
Yeah, seems about in line for what the expectation is.
It's a really good item. It's a 4 score item, but a lot of times for like any auto attack character, if you're getting a 4 score, you're gonna be building Elysian Halo first. And just because Elysian Halo has that biotic infusion, which does it does it's max HP damage, right? Not current HP.
Yep,
So it's really good against a lot of the cast, and especially good against clearing objectives too, such as Wickeline, even though that has been slightly nerfed since before, like last season. I believe it got nerfed. Did not affect Wickeline or other objectives as much as it did.
thankfully.
Yeah, and the what are your strong items right now? And have they changed since the last time we talked about them like a month ago?
uh, I haven't really. I don't think that they've really hit most of them, so they're probably about the same from what I expected, from what I expect from last time we spoke about it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'd say again with Iron. Yeah, I think Mithril Quiver is actually really strong right now. The I've definitely been seeing Mithril Quiver come up a lot more this week, and I'd say even last week compared to at the start of the season. I think people were unsure about the Mithril Quiver changes from losing its attack range, but now people have got used to it, and pretty much any auto attack character, I'd say more, yeah, even like range characters that are auto attack will want to run Myth Quiver. I'd say it's more preferable on melees though because of the bonus movement speed. As you see with this Piolo, you get 0.08 movement speed, but it also has swift strides on it, which can give you up to 0.06 movement speed as well. So this one accessory slot gives you 0.14 movement speed if you have it at max stacks, which is quite a lot. I believe it has gotten a nerf. It was 0.16 movement speed, but it's lost 0.2 since then. But regardless, it's still quite good.
Yeah, Mythical Quiver can never be bad, no matter what stats it gives.
Yeah, exactly. And I still think like Persona is like really good as well. Just the stats on it are insane. I mean, a lot of the helmets, in my opinion, have really good stats. In my opinion, Laurel Reef is like the worst helmet, but then again, it's just a tree. So
Yep.
now, I kind of tied in weakest items like Laurel Reef being there, and I still think Glacial Shoes are on the weaker end. They did get a buff, but I definitely think they get outclassed by Iron Maidens at this point. I don't know if it'll be if they buff Glacial Shoes or they nerf Iron Maidens until we actually see Glacial Shoes become more popular. They have been seeing somewhat more popularity. I remember from the stats we did last week that it actually was like a top 5 most built item, which it really surprised me because I know how bad they are. But I guess either KR doesn't know or they don't care. So yeah, and do you have any like worse items that you'd want to add?
Honestly, the new upgraded items, I've had to take a look at them more closely because they came out as I was going on vacation, so I haven't put too much thought into how those actually, scale on the priority tier lists.
Yeah, that's fair. They have Sultan's Turban. More people have been building. All Sultan's Turban gives you is 30 amp, but I think the main unique thing about it is that it gives it removes the feather requirement part of Imperial Burgonet. So like when I mean the third thing is I mean the movement speed. So feather items in this game, if it's on an item slot, not like your weapon, it is a unique aspect. Like you can't stack feather item movement speeds, but once you change it from Imperial Burgonet to Sultan's Turban, that no longer becomes a thing, and you can actually use the feather item movement speed. So I think that also gives characters that don't have healing reduction on their weapon to use White Crane Fan and get that movement speed that they weren't getting from before.
Yeah, I think the new items definitely have their niches, and like you said, that those sort of additions are definitely only just good things, at least in my opinion.
Yeah. And do you have anything to add about the current meta of the game? If you think which archetype's the strongest right now, the which the weakest, and just I guess the meta in general.
Just from what I've seen from glancing, just because like being on vacation from 2 weeks took me a bit away, and the meta does seem to have changed a decent amount since I've left. It looks like I guess like bruiser characters are pretty good again, which makes sense as they've increased time to kill, which I think is also the reason why they were so hesitant to increase time to kill again. So we'll see if I think bruiser versus bruiser can be an interesting matchup, but if you're a squishy mage character trying to play against a bruiser, it's often uninteresting as the mage. But so hopefully they can reach a perfect medium where the mage and bruiser matchup is, finally interesting to play, which is something that they struggled to do for a long, long time. So it's still what I'm waiting for them to figure out.
Yeah, that's fair. Like I remember Dina being on a lot of these lists, but she's not. We haven't seen her at all. These stats, like we didn't see her at all. So, uh, Adina's still good, but again, with if what you're saying, which makes sense, the Bruiser characters being better, she's not nearly as good as she was at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, which kind of sucks, but it's not too surprising.
I'm not. I will just to clarify. I'm not saying she's weak. I definitely think she's above average and probably, uh, like top tier, but just not doing as well as she was at the beginning.
Yeah, it will definitely take a lot more to make Adina truly bad because of how overloaded her kit is.
Yeah, exactly. And that is yeah. We did wrap up quite quickly. Oh, actually, no. One I forgot our one last question. What do you think is going to be addressed in the upcoming patch? What do you think?
Um,
Because the patch notes are actually tonight. It was long. They changed them to Thursday last time, but I believe they are still tonight. So
yeah, I think last time was for a Korean holiday, but I'm honestly not sure what to expect because I haven't really seen like very obvious complaints. Obviously, Tompion was already addressed in a hotfix, so I don't know if, and I think there was a tournament like the tournament you mentioned that was played last week. A lot of the problematic things were already addressed there. Personally, I would love to see a Martina update to make her a bit more early game focused and less obnoxious when broadcast goes online. But besides that, I genuinely have no idea. I'm kind of excited to see what the patch notes say, just to see if it's a very good patch, even with those expectations. But yeah, I mean, we'll see when it comes out how good it is.
yeah, I like just the characters we talked about. I think they will be like addressed in here. I gonna be. I trying to think mainly like yeah, as you said, a lot of the characters were nerfed in the hotfix. We might actually see like another nerf onto Tafayan. He's still like, even though he did get nerfed there, he's still being picked quite a lot more than normal. Like his 3.6% average pick rate is still very high. So I could expect to see some more of a nerfs to him, and just I think Hart will get a buff as well. I think, and Chloe, like those characters are definitely not doing it right now, but I am worried if they buff those characters, if they become like really good. I just feel like their kits are not very interactive to play with or play
Yeah,
against.
definitely. We'll see if they pull the trigger on those characters too quickly.
And yeah, if you guys have any questions for us, feel free to write it in the chat now. I'll wait like a minute or two to see if there's any responses. I know this is a bit of a quicker time. We kind of wrapped up things. A lot of the characters we have talked about before and didn't really need to be readdressed because they have the same flaws and or benefits as they did before, like most of them. So no need to really dig deeper into those characters. And yeah, I know that Bran, you've been on vacation, so I'd be interesting to see what you think now that you are back from vacation next week.
Yeah, definitely. It'll definitely be very fun to catch up on all the things that have been happening in a week, especially since the patch will come through and kind of digest with the community.
And next week we'll also be talking about Hayes. Which, did you see Hayes's video at all?
Yeah, the grenade. She is like Tychus from Heroes of the Storm, except her ultimate isn't a mecha suit. It's just her pulling out a more of what RPG.
Yeah.
Pretty fun stuff.
So I am excited to see. I do agree with a lot of people's sentiment on her that she is gonna be an anti-melee character, and that will be fun to play with because I feel like we have a lot of anti-melee characters in this game.
Yep.
But
Well, just one plus one to the list.
yeah, I do wonder what weapon she will be building though. Like because it seemed like they wanted her to be more of an amp. So people are predicting that like XDR was gonna get changed next patch to be amp weapon.
Yeah, I could definitely see that since XCR is kind of out of a niche at the moment.
And I think maybe even Type 95 as well. That one I haven't seen Type 95 in a while. Like I remember when Air ISO used to like build it for like early game strength and then like transition off of it. But he doesn't do that route anymore. He does the pistol starting route in Temple.
Yeah, that's a good point. I feel like XCR is literally just the routing diversity and not actually because it's a good weapon whatsoever.
Yeah. And yeah, that I don't see any questions from chat at this point. So I think that will be it for us today. I do thank everyone who came today as well. Sorry, I do actually want to apologize for the last week's podcast. I know you didn't hear about this brand, but I ended up losing power in the middle of it, and I did not get power back for over an hour.
Oh, that sucks.
And I tried to even message Shuvi using my data. Even I mean, I tried to message chat too, but my data wasn't even working.
You got hit by
So
an MP or something. That's crazy.
so I was like, well, I guess I can't do anything. I'll go to bed. So yeah, that's what kind of happened last week. But I do apologize. You can see my power is fine now. There was a bad storm last week, to be fair. So it's a little bit on me for not mentioning that my power might go out. Yeah. Um. Yeah, I'm just excited to see what the new patch will change.
Yeah, for sure. I'll probably be reading it on my. I have to go back to work in the office. So I'll be reading it on the train ride there. So it'll be
It's,
fun to see if I can stay awake while reading it.
oh, wait, how early do you have to go in?
It's like basic work hours. I'll probably have to
Oh,
be on my
okay.
way around 8:30, so it's not too bad.
Oh, it's not.
Very standard.
I was like, oh, I thought you were gonna say like, oh, I have to go in at 5:30, and I'm like,
Oh dear God, no! I would quit immediately.
uh, but yeah. And I guess at this point, well, I'll see who we can raid because I actually need to do some homework myself. I don't know who's on at this hour. I'm sorry. Is it JDN for not answering? And for the podcast, I normally don't answer from chat until later on. Just because I've recorded for other platforms as well. But if you did have something about um if you did have something to ask, feel free. It's a new player, decide to make Luke. Like I definitely check out like my YouTube channel. I have a bunch of beginner stuff on there. I pretty much have all the beginner stuff covered with which one? I haven't updated my augments things. I really meant to be doing that, but I've been super busy the last few weeks with school, so I haven't had time to.
Always good to be busy with school.
Yeah, school's busy. Um, no, well, we'll just raid Uzma. Uzma raided me. Ooh, was it Sunday night? So he looks like he's doing a maid. He does a maid stream on Saturday. So if you want to see Uzma, I guess in a maid's costume, check that out.
Beautiful.
Yeah, thank you everyone who came to the podcast tonight. I really appreciate it. And this will go up on the Red Circle or all your favorite podcasting platforms later tonight. I gotta do my homework thing first, and then I will work on that. And then I'll put it on YouTube tomorrow. I also put up episode 3 because I forgot to do that as well because my power went out and it set me back a day because I normally work on it the same nights and I can't do anything Wednesday and Thursday night. So yeah. Yeah, you guys are welcome, Clovis and Cronzy. I hope to see you on the stream on Friday because on Wednesday, Thursday I'm so busy. It'll be funny. But yeah, talk to you guys later.